Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Alan Hathaway. I'm glad you joined me for this particular message. This is the last in my series on the call from Luke chapter 10, verses 1 through 24. I want to talk to you about what we have seen. The intellectual class at the end of the 1600s had begun to challenge traditional Christian views of who Jesus was. In Luke chapter 10, Jesus rejoices in the Holy Spirit. He rejoices and celebrates that God has not revealed the hidden truths of the gospel to the culturally wise or to the elite, as we would call them in our day, but has given them instead to little children. By this, he is directly insulting the intellectual and political elite of his time. He is challenging them in their elitism. They believe that they're better than everybody else. The Pharisees, the scribes, the political leaders, the Roman authorities, everything was built on a hierarchy of importance, and you were important if you were of the right sort. And that was kind of what their world was built on. For Jesus, what was important was the concept of humility, the willingness to understand how needy we really were. And that's why he uses the term little children. And he talks to them about what they have seen and how important that is. He tells them that the prophets in the Old Testament and kings had desired to see what they see, and now they have been given the privilege of seeing it. It is the revelation of God to them. I think about that in our world because we are still very much concerned about being elite. In fact, we will pay large amounts of money to drive a car which gives people the impression that we're of the elite, or we will pay enormous amounts of sum to have the right brand name on our clothing, or the right shoes, or the right handbag, or the right house, or the right neighborhood. We will pay all kinds of things to be part of the elite, to be recognized as being important. And that was true in Jesus' day, just like it is in our day. Being elite meant something to them. And that is really what Jesus is talking to his disciples about. God did not choose you because you were elite. He did not select you, and I didn't select you, Jesus says, because you were elite. I chose you because of your humility, because of who you are, not because of what you appear to be. And really, when we talk about elitism, we're talking about appearance. We are not talking about reality. Jesus says that the important thing is that you know me. How important is it to know who Jesus is? Jesus was approached just after this whole incident of the 72 returning to him by a lawyer, it says, who comes to him and attempts to test him, as Luke says. And the discussion that devolves from this is the lawyer saying to Jesus, what is the most important of the laws? And Jesus says to him, how do you read this matter? And he rattles off, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you should love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus says, well said, if you do these things, you will have fulfilled the law. And then the lawyer says, but tell me exactly who is my neighbor. It's an interesting question. It's an interesting viewpoint from this lawyer. He is trying to mince words to as it were, muddy the waters. And very often people who are in elitism muddy the waters with words. They try to redefine them or change the meaning or change the direction of them in order to allow themselves a lot of ambiguity. And that is part of what Jesus is dealing with here with this lawyer. I want to fuzzy things up a bit. And so let's try and define this thing in a way or get it complicated enough so that I can define it as I want to. Jesus doesn't allow that. He launches instead into a story to explain what it means for a person to be my neighbor. Now, we're very familiar with this story. In fact, it's one of the most familiar stories in the gospel. It is the parable of the Good Samaritan. But Jesus points out something to this lawyer. This lawyer has come to him with a sense of being an elite person. He is well educated. He is on the top of their social registry, as it were. He is recognized where he goes, and so he expects deference from people because of his position in society. Jesus points out in the parable of the Samaritan that there was a priest who saw this man who had been beaten and robbed and left for dead. And the priest instead moves away on the other side of the road. The priest is, in the Jewish culture, the most elite person in their society. He is at the very top or the pinnacle of Jewish society. He is the one, as it were, that sets the standard of their culture. And then Jesus says the next person who comes is a Levite. And the Levites were the group from which the scribes were taken, the lawyers were taken. And they are the, as it were, the educated, the intellectual elites of their culture. And he found a way to get around trying to do something about the condition of this man. Very often we have a lot of people in our world that talk a good game, but when it really comes to making a difference in people's lives, they don't. And that is very often what elitism is. It's all about talking about doing something, but not really doing it. Here comes this Samaritan who was in the Jewish world view on the bottom rung of importance. He was nowhere near what we would call an elite. He was simply a traveling businessman. He was not even considered worthy to sit at a table with Jewish people unless there was nobody else of standing to sit there. And so this man comes along and he sees this man who has been beaten and abused and misused, and he takes him and cares for him. He binds his wounds. He cleans him up and puts him on his own donkey and takes him to the next inn and tells the owner, I'll pay all the expenses for this man until he gets well. Take care of him, and when I come back through, I will pay everything that's owed for his care. And Jesus says to this lawyer, now tell me, who was the man's neighbor? The answer is obvious. Jesus says being elite doesn't mean a thing to God. Doesn't mean how important you are or how important you appear in the world. Does not mean a thing to God. And ultimately, it really doesn't mean anything. Because of truth, everything we have in this world, our prestige, our cars, our houses, all of that stuff doesn't go past death. The only thing that goes past death is you and me. And when we step across that line and we are in eternity, it will only be important who we know and whom we have seen. Jesus says to his disciples, "You have seen me, and you know me. And because you know me, you have hope that goes beyond this moment." For Christians, the important thing is that we have seen Jesus. Jesus said to his disciples, "Many have desired to see what you have had the opportunity to see." John would state it even more bluntly in his first letter. He would say, "That which we have handled with our hands, which we have taken in to our company and have experienced, that we proclaim to you. That we give to you as the truth, the message, the hope of the world." That is really the calling, is to share this message of who Jesus is. In a real sense of the word, the Samaritan understood the calling. He understood what it meant to be a neighbor. He understood what it meant to do what was necessary. The elite priest, the elite Levite and lawyer did not understand what it meant. They thought it was about them. But really, it is about Jesus and the difference he makes in our lives. And that's what it's about even today. You can share with people how important you are, or you can share with them what Jesus Christ can do in their lives. And that's really what I choose to do, because it's not about me. It is about him. And if it's about you and not him, when you step across that line, nothing you have accomplished will mean anything. God bless. You have a wonderful day. Talk to you later. Hope to see you in church.